Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Bitcoin Developers Twitch stream. Today is all going to be about the LDK, the Lightning Development Kit. It's going to be our second episode. We're going to do another deep dive for you guys. I've got my friend Val with me today. She's going to introduce herself to you in a little bit, and we're going to go through a little bit about her history and how she got into Bitcoin. And then she's gonna show us how we can create a sample node using the Lightning Development Kit. But before we do that, I just want to see what's going on in the chat, where you guys are kind of tuning in from. Always love to hear where you're hanging out with us from. And also want to shill a few things, actually. So bear with me one sec. We've got Brooklyn in the house. Love it. Fantastic. While I share my screen.
Rachel.
Northern Ireland. Woo, woo. Love it. So I'm going to share my screen quickly. So I've launched this new website called bitcoindevelopers.xyz, and it'll give you like a bit more information about what we're trying to do here. But essentially it's, for developers and builders, designers who want to, learn how to build the future monetary system, the future of money in general. We've had some awesome recent episodes. Steve Myers learning about BDK from the command line. BDK we like to view it as very much a sister project to the LDK, which we're going to discuss today. We had Alikos on previewing Taproot transactions, so can't wait for that to get merged in eventually. And we had Christoph from the design community as well, showing us how to use the Bitcoin UI kit. So if you want to know some of the episodes we've done in the past, feel free to come to this website, check out episodes from the past, and you can also you can subscribe to a calendar as well, Google Calendar for now, and I'll update this page to include future episodes as well. And then if you don't manage to catch us on the live stream, you can always go to the YouTube channel and watch the playbacks there. We're at 127 subscribers so far, and I'm really not happy with that. There were Bitcoin developers, right? This should have like thousands of subscribers, but we'll get there eventually. And this is the only number go up I care about this year. So we need to really share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we'll introduce you to our guest today. So, Val, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Really, really cool to be here showing people how to make a node. So yeah, excited.
Awesome, awesome. So, let's talk a bit about your Bitcoin story then. Like, I feel like you're super Bitcoin native because of your past and your history. So, do you want to let the people know how you got into Bitcoin and your previous work and what you're doing now?
Yeah, definitely all Bitcoin history. Just wish it was longer and I got
Yeah.
in sooner. But yeah, I think I first heard about it in like 2014, and then in 2017, I was like graduating college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I kind of just went down the rabbit hole, the whole like classic Andreas Antonopoulos like YouTube slash mastering Bitcoin. I was like, wow, this is so awesome, and this is also like really at the intersection of what I want to do with my computer science degree as well. So it just seems perfect. So yeah, I got really excited, and then near when I was graduating, I started contributing to some Lightning Labs projects, and they took me on as an intern. So I was interning there for like a pretty long time, and then went full time, and then started talking to Steve a little bit and getting excited about the Spiral project, formerly known as Square Crypto. And yeah, we chose Lightning, which was really perfect because that's always what I've been obsessed with was getting payments working on Bitcoin, getting that
Mm.
like Venmo experience, that P2P payment experience. So yeah, that pretty much brings us to now. But
Okay.
yeah, really stoked.
Okay,
Mhm.
awesome. And like your experience, like just straight out of university and working on Bitcoin, it's all been like mostly positive, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool. I love working with first of all never met so many geniuses as in Bitcoin. Like it's
Yeah,
wild the just technical prowess, but
yeah,
just also like the passion and the vision for making it super accessible to everyone and just
yeah,
breaking down those borders and no one why should anyone know who I'm paying? None of your business, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
just
exactly.
all of that.
So is it something you would recommend, like people who are at university and stuff now? Is it like a genuine career path that like someone who's a developer can go down?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like now is like a really good time, and I
Mm,
feel like what makes it so cool is that everything's open source pretty much. So you really don't have to ask anyone. Like you can tailor it to pick a project that's tailored to your skill set or your
mhm.
interests, and pretty much just contribute directly. And yeah, just like it's very easy, very low barrier to entry to get involved for sure.
Awesome, awesome. And so yeah, what are you working on now again? So you're at Spiral, and what kind of stuff are you doing at Spiral?
Yeah, so our main focus is the LDK project, obviously. So this is a Lightning library that can be used to be integrated to integrate Lightning into existing Bitcoin wallets, or
Mhm,
if you have very specific infrastructure, LDK will kind of fit into that infrastructure. So that would kind of like distinguish us from projects like C Lightning, LND, Eclair, where it's more like you build their project and then you just run it as a node on your
mhm.
laptop or whatever. So LDK is much more, it's a library. It's meant to integrate into existing wallets. Yeah, it's not like you just build it and you can just run a node immediately. Like we have the sample node that we're going to talk about today, but that's not
Mm,
really production. It's more like
yeah,
a demonstration of what you can build with LDK and the
yeah.
flexibility.
Okay, fantastic. And just looking in the chat again, we've got people tuning in from San Francisco,
Awesome.
Oxford, Long Beach. We did have 21 viewers at one point, which meant it was the perfect stream. We've got Mempool.space in the house. Shout out
Yes.
to Wiz. Apparently, he's got to work on his nickname though. So, all interesting stuff. Okay, so if people want to find you, let me try and share my screen again. We go here. I guess Twitter's a good place.
Yeah, sounds good. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So what have we got planned for us today? How do you plan on helping us learn a bit more about LDK and creating a sample node?
Yeah, so I think the plan is first we're going to start off just like demoing the sample node, like prove that it actually works. and then like sending a payment, all that, opening, closing a channel. And I think after that, the plan is the sample's very small, like very minimal. And I think we're just going to kind of work our way through it and go through like the steps you would need to take to build an LDK node. So, for example, you need to get fee information and stuff like that. And then also talk about a little bit about how a user would interface with LDK, which is a very like events-based interface. Like LDK will generate an event when a payment is received, and stuff like that, and kind of talk about that and kind of like just different configuration options and just trying to get a sense of like the flexibility and the different things that are possible. So
Okay.
yeah, I think
Fantastic.
that sounds good.
Okay, awesome. And then just to go back very quickly, I know you did describe it just a moment ago as well, but what is like the LDK to you? I know you mentioned it differs very much from some of the other Lightning implementations, C Lightning, Eclair, and LND. There's also, but we also have use cases that are very specific, and the library is very tailored to, such as like running on mobile and things of that nature. Can you maybe talk to that a little bit as well? Or?
Definitely, yeah. No, those are definitely some other things that make LDK really special. So like because we don't have like LDK doesn't even have its own database. It'll just like give you bytes to just persist in any way that you want to. And so that combined with the fact that LDK doesn't make any system calls, like an example of a system call would be like rand or like create a file that would involve like system calls, but LDK doesn't do any of that, so it doesn't make any assumptions about the underlying architecture. Depending on the amount of memory available, it could even be feasible to run it on some type of hardware wallet or something. But certainly we've noticed in like the Lightning ecosystem in general, there's been issues with getting the current implementations working on mobile phones in a performant way. They just tend to be more like, they're like a real node. They're like heavyweight. They're meant to like perform on more hardware basically. So in that way, LDK kind of also works to bridge that gap. And yeah, like an example would be like Moon uses LND technically, but they've forked it and modified like 95% of it. So this is the kind of thing that we want to help developers avoid and make it super easy. And we want to get to the point where it's really easy for developers to experiment with different like UXs, different ways of experiencing Lightning, different like try not to show them very much information about Lightning, and maybe they're using Lightning but they don't even realize it. So that's kind of the type of experimentation we're trying to empower developers with.
And then we also have the concept of like language bindings or like multi-language support as well.
Yeah.
How important do you think that is for development experience?
Yeah, that's really crucial. And that's been like an insane portion of like the actual work that we've been doing day to day over the past 3 years is just Rust is awesome. Like we love it. It's very safe. You're not going to get any buffer overflows or anything like that. But the language binding ecosystem is definitely on the less mature side, which makes sense. So our team has been freaking pioneering that. I feel like I'm not personally very involved with that, but big kudos to Matt and Arik for powering through our Java bindings and our Swift bindings, because that's been huge for getting people onto LDK, because people love React Native and they want to use like Kotlin and stuff like that, and we're trying to get Flutter support as well. So that's definitely a massive priority for us, and we want to add even more languages like Python and Go and all of that. So yeah, huge priority, because we realize that people don't really necessarily want to develop in Rust as well. I mean, I don't understand that, but I hear that. So
totally. Yeah. What was I going to say? I think it's no. I was just going to say, I mean, the language binding stuff deserves a whole stream in and of itself, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, Wiz, you can use Node.js with LDK using Wasm, although I don't think anyone's gone too deep with that yet. But yeah,
not just yet, but it is available on npm. I can find the link as we go throughout the show, or if someone else gets there before me, please feel free to post it in the chat. But we are slowly providing support for like web-based languages as well. All right, cool. So I think we've given quite a nice bit of context there, so we can kind of dive into running the sample node now. We do have a kind of quick start kind of guide for people who do want to perhaps either follow along or in their spare time play around with the sample node as well, and I'll post that in the chat just here. And then yeah, we can get going. So let me try to change screens and try something a bit different this week. So if I stop sharing my screen and share a different screen. Okay, so you'll have to bear with us a little bit, and hopefully it's still quite clear. So I'll have my terminal open on the right hand side, and I'll just I've already got like the LDK sample project cloned, so I'll just start in there. So when running an LDK node in this case, or a Lightning node in general, like we want to be able to experiment like as a developer in like a local environment, so it makes it easier for us to test certain bits of functionality, as opposed to just maybe YOLOing on mainnet or even testnet for that matter. And one of the tools that you introduced me to actually is called Polar, which allows us to do that, right? So
yes, love Polar.
Yeah, so does it make sense for us to get that up as well? Yeah.
Okay. Yep, sounds good.
So we'll get Polar up. Let's see here. Java. Okay. While that's loading, what was that? Java and TypeScript bindings for LDK here. Oh, okay, perfect. Right, maybe I need to close it and open it again. So Polar, Polar. So okay, so Polar's opened here on the left-hand side, and basically it allows you to simulate a local Lightning network on your local machine. So I'm just going to click this create a Lightning network button, and then I guess we just give it a name. So just call it my Lightning Simnet. Simnet, and then basically it allows you to create a simulated Lightning network. In this case, we're going to have one LND node. I'm not sure if I can zoom in here. No, I can't zoom in, but basically one LND node, one C Lightning node, one Eclair node, and they're all going to be backed by a Bitcoin Core node. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like, yeah, we went with kind of the simplest sample, so that was it was easiest to just assume a local core node. Okay, so Kappa, why do people love YOLOing on mainnet? Can you explain? I don't get
it. Well, I don't know. Maybe we've got some really experienced like developers in the community now that really know what they're doing, but I'm not one of those, so I need the local environment. So as you can see by this, I guess network topology, or whatever you want to call it, that it's a visualization of basically what we set out there. So we've got Carol with her Eclair node, Bob with his C Lightning, and Alice with her LND node, and then they're all backed by a Bitcoin Core node. And then if we start it, let's see what happens here. Word on the street is that testnet coins are rarer than real ones. Maybe.
Yeah, the faucets used to be way better. I feel like, yeah, if I need to test it, I would just ask Matt now.
Yeah. All right. So I got this annoying message saying that I'm unable to connect to a node because no wallet is loaded. Load a wallet using load wallet or create a new one with create wallet. So I guess I can quickly do that, because I think Polar allows you to launch a terminal instance directly inside it, and then you can use the CLI to run commands. It's a bit small and you're not going to be able to see it, but I'm basically just using the Bitcoin CLI to create a test wallet by using the create wallet command, and then passing it a name of the wallet. So I'll just call it test wallet for now, and do that. So I think in previous versions of Bitcoin Core, like when you run it, it would create a wallet directly for you, but now you have to explicitly do that. So I'm I'm gonna stop the node from running and restart it again, and it should work this time. Yeah, cool. So again, sorry, it's a little bit small, but what we have here is like it's just telling us the node type, and the version is 21.1, and this line is like a spendable balance, and it's 0 at the minute. So Val, we're gonna need some funds to do this whole like lightning stuff, right? To like open channels and pay stuff. I think the reason I'm kind of just speeding through a little bit on the Polar stuff because I want to get to the LDK stuff, but I think the reason the spendable balance is 0 is because you have to mine 100 blocks to get the Coinbase reward. I think it's 100 or 101 blocks. So if you go to the actions tab in Polar, and where it says manually mine blocks, I'll just do like 100 and click mine. And now the height of the chain is at 102. And if I go back to info, I now have a spendable balance of 100 BTC. So we should be good to go now, I think. I think we should be good to go. So Polar setup. I'm in my LDK node. What's the first thing I kind of need to do?
Well, if you go to the README, I guess you'll want to start it, get to the CLI, so the cargo run.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so
I can type it out in the.
I think I had it somewhere. Let's have a look. So just so we can show the people as well, what I'll do is, if you want to access the sample itself, you can head over to github.com/lightning devkit/LDK sample. And here you can clone it and fork it and all of that good stuff. So basically, it just says to clone the sample, which I've done already, and then cd into the example, and to run it. It's very much an interface similar to what you'll find on other Lightning nodes, is to find the Bitcoin RPC username, password, and host, and port a directory to store like LDK data, and then a port to listen for incoming and outgoing connections, what network you want, and whether or not you want to announce being on the network. Is that right, Val?
Yeah, although some of those are optional.
Some of those are optionals. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I just sent the command that I usually use.
Okay, let's see. All right, cool. And then we can kind of walk through it. All right, so terminal. So I'll paste this in. All right, so what do we have here? So we have cargo run, and then Polar user is, we get it from our Polar instance running here, and I think you can view it on the connections tab. So it's under username, and then the password is Polar pass as well. And then we're running at localhost and on port 18443.
I think so, yeah.
Yep. And then we want to save all LDK specific data just at the root. And the port, the 8889 is for.
I just made that up.
Yeah, but that's for listening for connections to peers, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to run it in reg test mode. So let's see how we go.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So it actually worked first time. So I think I'm going to take a breather now and just see what's going on in the chat. No, I'm joking. We should continue. But so it says here, to view available commands, press help. So I'll do that. So yeah, what do we have here, Val? Is this just like a list of like different commands I can do?
Yep. Exactly. It's pretty basic stuff. But yeah, just what you would expect, like opening a channel, sending a payment, getting an invoice. Yeah, so I guess the first step would be opening a channel, I guess.
Okay.
There's also like node info if you want to see like your node pub key.
Okay, so yeah, maybe let's do that first. So let's type node info. Let me make this a bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so this gives me my node pub key, number of channels, num channel 0, number of usable channels 0, local balance in MSATs, so millisatoshis,
Mm-hmm.
and number of peers. How about I try and connect to a peer just to see if that works?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to type help again because I want to make sure I'm using the right command. So it looks like we have this connect peer
Mm-hmm.
command, and it takes a public key, a host, and a port.
Yeah. So
So
that
how
should
about
be pretty easy to copy and paste from the Polar interface.
yeah. So do I go? So I go over to any of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's use Bob and try and connect to Bob's node. I think if I go to the connect tab in Polar and copy and paste this P2P external
Yep.
address,
Yeah, that's right. S
I can.
Geisler 11. It's connected to the core node in Polar.
Okay, cool. And then so the command is connect peer, and then the external address.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it looks like it worked because I got this
Yeah.
success message saying connected to peer and all this long alphanumeric string. So I guess if I was to go back to node info, I would see some of those stats change a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can also do list peers. But yeah, you can see num peers as 1.
So I've got number of peers 1, and you said I can do list peers as well.
I think so.
Cool. So that's the public key for Bob C Lightning node, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Should be.
All right. Cool. That makes sense. And then what else can we do? So obviously the whole thing about Lightning is this idea of payment channel. So whoops, not node info, I want to do help. So is that probably the next thing to try?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just before we do that, so is the LDK node connected to the Bitcoin Core backend in Polar?
Yep,
Yes.
exactly. That's how we avoided actually setting up building core from source. Yeah.
So it's quite handy. All right, so we're gonna open a channel. So we have the open channel command, and that takes a public key, address, host, and a port, and then amount in satoshis you want to use to open a channel.
Mm-hmm.
So how about we try open a channel to Bob and see how we get on?
Cool.
Okay, so the command was open channel, and then again we can paste Bob's pub key, host, and port, and then the amounts in Satoshi. So should we do something nice and easy, like 100,000 Satoshis or something?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, so we get this message back, and this is what you was talking about earlier about the events you get back after every. It's like an event-driven architecture with LDK, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of how LDK lets you know when stuff is happening, it will send you events.
Okay, cool. And we're going to dive into the code in a minute. Like once we've demoed this, we've got a few commands. So again, it says initiate a channel with peer Bob, as we know. So I guess if we check our node info again, it will show us this time that we have one channel, and the local balance has increased to. So it's in millisatoshis actually.
Mm-hmm.
So millisatoshis is what
Thousandth.
1,000th of a satoshi.
Mm-hmm.
That's not confusing, is it?
I know, right? Tell me about it.
So how many zeros have we got here? We've got 100 million millisatoshis, it looks like.
Yeah, I think.
All right, cool. So we've got 100,000 satoshi, or
Yeah, but I
100
think we need to
million
mine some blocks for the channel to be open.
because all right. So how do we know it's not open? So should I list?
Yeah,
channels?
list channels. Right, so it's not confirmed. And it can't
Okay.
send payments.
Okay, so it's not confirmed. and we can't send payments. Okay, and that's because when you open a channel, do you want to explain, like, without going too much into like Lightning infrastructure? I know we want to keep it LDK, but what's actually happening? Because we've got like funding transaction and like all this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, how Lightning works is the funding, there's a bunch of Lightning transactions, but the one that opens a channel is the funding transaction, and it basically, the output of that like, it takes inputs from both parties that want to participate in the channel, and the output is this multi-sig output basically. But yeah, if people have sent Bitcoin transactions before, you know that they're not really for sure, or they might get reorged until they get confirmed a certain number of times. So it's just like the same principle here. You wouldn't want to send a payment because then if the channel then gets reorged out, that payment basically didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
Okay, that makes sense. And so because we're doing all of this locally, we don't actually have to wait for like real life time for blocks to be mined. We can actually just mine them ourselves. So Polar has this quick mine button at the top. So is it, how many confirmations does LDK wait before
I think by
considering a
default
channel?
it's 6.
It's 6. So okay, I'll try and mine 6 blocks and see what happens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll do one more for luck because I think I didn't get one. And then now what do I do? Do I list channels again and see if it's changed?
Yep. Cool, it can send payments now.
Okay, cool. Because, and we know that because is confirmed on chain is true and channel can send payments is true. And the local balance in that channel is 100,000 Satoshis, like we set out at the start. So that's cool. This is going pretty well. So now I have a channel open with Bob. I want to send Bob some funds. Do we have a command for that as well?
Yeah, I think you'll want send payment, but I think you'll need to get an invoice from Bob. So I think you'll want to click on him, and I think under actions there's something for an invoice. Yeah, I can't really see, but I think
create
there.
invoice. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have. Okay, cool. So we have create invoice. I'll do yeah, I'll do half the balance. Why not? Bob's a cool guy.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then I'll copy it over. So we have send payment, and that takes a Lightning invoice. So send payment, and then I'll paste the Lightning address, Lightning invoice more accurately.
Oh, great.
Okay,
Wow.
cool.
I don't know why I'm surprised that worked.
You lot have been working magic. Like you shouldn't be surprised. But
Right.
in any event, we get another event again, highlighting the kind of event-driven nature of LDK, and it says that it's initiated sending 550 milli Satoshis to Bob. Yeah, so successfully sent 50 million milli Satoshis. Fee was 0 milli Satoshis from payment hash, blah, 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 with pre-image, blah, blah, blah. So that seemed to work. So I guess if we check our balance now, it should be half. Seems correct. Cool. So we've sent Bob some funds. Do we want to close the channel, or do we want to get those funds back? What would you do at this point? Maybe I'll let you decide.
I don't really mind.
Okay. Well, let's because since we've done some kind of transferring of value, why don't we close the channel
Okay, cool.
and see how that works? So I'm going to go back to help again because I've got a bad memory and I can't remember these commands. But
Right.
we have this close channel command.
Yep.
And it says it takes a channel ID.
So I think that you can get that from list channels.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we have this channel ID. I'm just gonna copy that, and then I'll do close channel and paste the channel ID.
Mhm.
And then cool. It says event initiating channel close, and the channel with the channel ID closed due to a cooperative close, which is how you should always close your Lightning
Yes.
channels. So we won't demo the force close, just because we don't want any bad luck. But that is pretty much the demo, and that went pretty smoothly. So like, as you can see, like you can do all of the things you would be able to do with pretty much any other Lightning node. But again, this is a sample and just designed to show off what LDK can do and be run in development environments. So now we'll unless is there anything else you want to show or say before we dive into like code and walk through that side of things?
Yeah, that sounds great. If people want a more like production LDK node that gives kind of like the LND C Lightning experience, I think John Cantrell's Sensei project kind of aims to address that. So yeah, I don't have a link handy, but yeah, that could
Let me
be
see if I
that could be
can.
cool. And yeah, Steven said Bob and Alice have kind of a codependent relationship. That's so true.
Yeah, Sensei is actually using BDK and LDK, so definitely dive into that. Some good stuff going on in Discord and just general conversations on GitHub. So definitely check that out. So all right, let me try and open a text editor so we can actually see what's going on behind the scenes, and then I'll change my window again. So let me stop sharing, and then I'll share.
Nim Kappa says, "Can you automate this setup through scripts?" Maybe, but it's not really designed for that. There's probably a way of like some Python, like you can have Python type for you, like type open channel for you. But it's really just like a few commands to open a channel. So
Yeah, I mean, what specific aspect would you want automated is the question. Would you want like the funding of the on-chain wallet, or yeah, what aspect specifically would
I don't think
because
the
it's a good
polar,
it's a really good question, because like, do you really want to have to do mine this and on-chain this and all of that, when maybe there's a way to just have all of that wrapped as one thing, and then you can just focus on doing Lightning straight away? So it's a good question.
that is true.
All right, so we have the LDK sample from a code perspective now. Do you want to give us an overview of like what the file structure is and how you add LDK as a dependency and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a Rust project. So I guess you'd want to put it in the cargo toml file. So yeah, that's all the dependencies. And the LDK, our repo is confusing. Our repo is called Rust Lightning. So yeah, and then within that, there's a bunch of different Rust crates that provide like things that you could do yourself if you want to do it super custom, but we just provide like a sample module, basically, if you don't want to implement that yourself. So yeah, as you can see, this sample is using like all of our sample modules, and they're all imported here: block sync, invoice, networking, persisting to disk, etc. Yeah.
So it is the case that you can use one, all, or some of these modules. You don't have to use all of them. This is just the case in the sample, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you wanted to just have something generating invoices, you could just use the invoice crate on its own, and that would be fine.
Okay, that makes sense. And then just some other packages to do some other utility type of stuff, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, what else do we have going on?
Yeah, I guess to kind of just go through the file structure, main would be like the entry point of the program. So that contains a function called main, and cargo run just looks for something called main and runs it. So yeah, so that's where you get all like the initialization of the LDK objects. yeah, so that's the main file. And then there's also the
Mhm.
event handling in there. And then there's the Bitcoin D client, which is what interfaces with Bitcoin D, gets fee information, gets like UTXOs for funding channels. Then there's CLI, and that's like the little command line interface you saw us interacting with where we were typing open channel. Like that's how it interacts basically. Convert is just a bunch of utilities that have to do with the way we implemented our block sync. So that's kind of whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
Disk is all the stuff about writing to disk, and also like on startup, you want to read some stuff from disk, such as your channel data and your network graph information, so you don't have to resync everything every
Okay.
time. Yeah, hex utils. I don't remember what's in that one, but I think it's just what it sounds like. Just some little
I
yeah,
guess for
that kind of
just
thing.
reading and writing data from storage and stuff in
Yeah,
different formats and that kind of stuff, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay.
the file structure.
Okay. So nothing too complicated. So where do we start? Did you say we should probably start in main and then kind of work our way through it from there, or?
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. Yeah.
Okay.
So main just calls start LDK, and
Yeah. And then start LDK is this quite long
it's really
function
long.
here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So when I was kind of writing this initially, I wanted it to like line up with our documentation because our documentation also has a step-by-step guide for building an
Mhm.
LDK node and what info you need to be fetching at each step or whatever. So yeah, if people are like building their own LDK node, it might be good to like side by side and see
Yeah.
what's differences, etc. But yeah, just I guess we can just like dive into
Mhm.
this here.
Mhm.
So yeah, the first step would just be getting the Fiestimator object, and in this case, we're using Bitcoin D as our source of fees. But yeah, you
Okay,
can
so
use other things too. Yeah.
no, I was gonna say, okay, so we're using Bitcoin D as our source for fee estimation. So we have a Bitcoin D client is what you described, I think, earlier, right? And
Mhm.
how does that work then? So fee estimation.
Yeah, it should be implemented as a trait.
Okay, so let's try and find fee. Okay, here we go. Okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Oh yeah,
All right, so
perfect.
yeah, what's happening here?
Yeah, so our fee estimator trait basically like LDK needs you to give it a fee estimator object that implements the trait, but like under the hood, you can be doing whatever you want in the implementation. Like you could be hitting an API endpoint, you could be making it up on the spot. Like I mean, that's not recommended, but you could. And
Mhm.
in this case, we're doing it with Bitcoin D. So the first argument is the confirmation target. So at different points in a Lightning node, you have different levels of urgency for when you need something to be confirmed. So that's basically what the confirmation target tries to express. And
So if I click
yeah,
into confirmation target, we have different priority levels, I guess.
exactly. Yeah, like do we need it in the next block, or is it okay if it's confirmed like sometime today, type
Hmm.
of thing?
Okay, and you said that we're using Bitcoin D for fee estimation. So what is that? Is that like another just RPC call? I think
Yeah,
I've seen it
it's
before
a little
somewhere.
confusing because like that trait just pulls it from cached values. But yeah, here we go. Here it is like actually fetching the fees from Bitcoin D. So it
Okay.
uses the estimate smart fee RPC method, I think.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But so okay, so and this is just what we've chosen, but you could easily like use a mempool.space API if you wanted, or where do other places do people get fees from? Maybe like back in the day it was like was it earn?
Oh yeah, you linked bitcoinfees.earn.com.
Yeah, bitcoinfees.earn.com is one. But basically, or like you said, you can just literally just hard code it in if you wanted to be a bit silly. But
Mm-hmm.
and then I guess like part of that response as well is like the priority levels you want for that transaction. So we've got like I don't know what economical and conservative are like.
Yeah. Well, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in any event, it's basically like the priority levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
So
how
there's
quick do we need it to be confirmed?
okay. Mempool dot space is a fine choice. Yeah.
Indeed.
There's no bias there. Okay, cool. So let's head back to main again. And so we've got a fee estimator. We need a way to like calculate on-chain fees.
Yep.
I've lost it. Okay, cool. And then what would we need next?
Well, next in the thing is the logger. That's kind of boring. That's just like you need some place to write logs. So in this case, we have a logger that just writes it to a file, just appends it to the end, never rotates, just simply the most basic logger you can think of.
Oh, okay. So when I created the LDK node, like, and I said to store everything at the root, is that where I was going to see all like the logs and stuff?
Yeah, the logs will be in there. The logs, the channel data,
Maybe we
the
can
other
just
stuff.
maybe
Oh yeah, we
can
could like look at it for sure. So it's in .ldk.
okay. CD. Okay. And then, oh, cool. All right. So here's our logs. So maybe if I seed it into logs as well. And then logs is just like exactly what they sound like, just a dump of different events and when errors go wrong and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. We've
Yeah,
also got
that's the
some other
logs
stuff.
from LDK.
We've also got some other stuff like network graph and prob scorer and channel peer data, key seed, blah, blah, blah. I guess we can come back to those. Okay.
Yeah, happy to do that either way. Yeah.
Okay. And the login is so we have a basic in this case file system logger, which so does the LDK come with its own like persistent storage type of thing, or does the user have to like define their own?
So the user has to specify it, but we provide a sample that's like a very simple, just writing to the local disk thing. So yeah.
So here we have like the logger trait. So someone could technically just use that and write to disk, but we've gone for like a slightly more custom.
Oh, you can't use that for logs. That's for writing more like channel data and like important data. Yeah, like the log, but like if you wanted a simpler logger, you could just have it like print to the console. But we just didn't want to do that with the sample because that would like clutter up the CLI area. But yeah, you can use something that writes to disk. You can do a cloud backup. You could do, yeah.
And is it like in this function where some of that stuff would happen? So we have like a log function that we have to implement. I know we've got some custom stuff in here, but around here is where we would do some of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
I guess LDK doesn't really provide a sample logger, to be fair.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense. So we've got some logins. We've got Fiestimator. We've got a logger now. And then I'm seeing here we've got this thing called a broadcaster.
Oh yeah. So LDK doesn't broadcast its own transactions. It gives them to the user to broadcast. So yeah, in this case, Bitcoin D is perfectly capable of broadcasting transactions, obviously. So we just hand it to I forget what the RPC call is, but I think it's just like broadcast.
Okay, so do we have a broadcaster trait? Oh, okay. Okay, here we are. So what's happening here? So we have we're implementing a broadcast interface for our Bitcoin D client. And we have to implement this broadcast transaction function, which takes a transaction. So in our case, are we just using the RPC client to do that for us?
Yeah. We're just calling the RPC method send raw transaction on Bitcoin D. Yeah, just with the serialized transaction.
Cool.
Stephen asks, what are other types of broadcasters?
Mhm.
I guess you could use Electrum, or you could send it directly to a miner. Or you could, if anyone has like if you have an Umbral node, well, I guess that's just the same as Bitcoin D.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if there's other options, but do you,
But
Connor?
I'm not sure. I'm sure I've seen like people like paste the serialized transaction into like random online, because like
Yeah.
you could use anyone's like node to broadcast a transaction, right? So like you could literally just like Google Bitcoin transaction broadcaster, and I'm not suggesting to do this by
Ham
any stretch of the
radio.
imagination.
Mhm.
Yeah, ham radio. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely.
So okay, cool. That seems pretty straightforward. So we have a way to broadcast transactions now. Cool. All right. What's next?
So next is the persistence. So that will be persisting stuff like your really important channel data, as well as just more like LDK metadata. So LDK will basically take this object and call the trait methods on it when it has new stuff that needs to be written to disk. And yeah, our persistence API is interesting because you can use it in a very simple way. But if you're like running a really high volume node and you need to be making updates all the time, then we have like a slightly more complicated way of doing it asynchronously. And anyway, we can get into that for
Okay,
sure.
cool. And then when you're instantiating a file system persister, it just takes in this case a path to the directory where you want to store that information. If people remember correctly, when we typed out that command to start the node, we just said we want to save that stuff to the root directory. Okay, and yeah, so it just takes a path to channel data. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. Okay, cool. So that seems like we've been able to get quite a lot done in just maybe like, well, it's not really 4 lines of code, but like on the surface, like behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. But when you're instantiating, a lot of this stuff is quite straightforward. Okay, and here's where it gets, I guess, quite interesting. So, what's this chain monitor
Yeah,
concept?
now we're getting into more like complicated LDK internal APIs, and yeah, this guy is basically responsible for monitoring chain data and detecting like when relevant transactions show up, such as if your counterparty force closes, then their commitment transaction will appear on chain. So it's the one that will kind of see that and be like, "Hey, this channel closed." So
Okay,
yeah,
and
and
to
it's
create.
parameterized by the broadcaster, the logger, the Fiestimator, all the things that we just instantiated.
And so do you have like one chain monitor for your whole application that like monitors all on-chain stuff? Or is it like you have multiple, or how is it just the one? Yeah.
Just the one, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
some objects are per channel, but most of them they're just like just one per node.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. Okay, so we have a chain monitor to monitor on-chain stuff. Does it change depending on like where does it source chain information from?
So I believe we'll later get to this other interface where it's like there's a few options for supplying chain data for LDK. For example, one of them is block based. So that would be for like Bitcoin D, where blocks are coming in, and basically you can feed LDK either through this trait object. You can feed it either like full blocks or only the transactions that are relevant. And then if you're using something like Electrum that doesn't really have the concept of a block, it's more just like transactions that are in like different states at different times, then you'll use the other interface, which I'm forgetting what it's called right now. But yeah, so those in that way we kind of have that flexibility there. And it would also work with neutrino or BIP 157, 158 type of chain, light chain data.
Okay, we have a quick question. So if we're using LDK with mobile phone wallets, would your phone need to maintain a constant internet connection?
Well, currently you would need to
Depends,
be
yeah.
online to send or receive. This is something that we're working on. Matt sent this epic email to the mailing list about offline payments with Lightning, where it happens more asynchronously. So, but yeah, you need to be online to send or receive. But you do, other than that, you don't need to be online all the time, really. You do need to go online sometimes to make sure your counterparty didn't breach you. But yeah, this is something we're working on, and that problem would be solved with watchtowers as well. So
Awesome. And then we're going into like stuff around keys now. So in fact, I'll read it. The key seed that we use to derive the node private key that corresponds to the node public key and other secret material. Just to jump in a little bit, just for people who are not familiar with Rust, we're not going through the syntax too heavy because I know not everyone does Rust, and it's actually not that important for this stream. It's more just to get the high level overview of like the different components and stuff. So bear with us if like the Rust syntax is making your eyes hurt. But
yeah.
Talk us through a little bit about what's happening here.
Yeah. So as mentioned, LDK does not make any system calls, which includes calls to get random bytes. So the user has to kind of provide that. And it's kind of intuitive, but like LDK over the course of its like being a node and opening channels, it has to generate keys, right? For like a bunch of different things. And to have secure key generation, oftentimes you need that initial randomness or that initial thing. So that's kind of where this is being provided, basically. This is used as kind of like I'm probably butchering this explanation, but I think it's like the seed that like then begets other seeds, like the master seed.
The entropy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So as a result, yeah, you do need to save this, and it needs to be the same across restarts. So
Okay.
yeah, that is kind of
Okay.
a
So
quirk, I guess.
so when LDK is starting up, you can just provide it some entropy from which it will create your private public key pair. You don't have to derive them yourself.
Yeah.
You just can provide it the randomness, and then it will do it for you and save it locally or wherever you want to save it, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. But the user has to like save that entropy and use the same one every
Got you.
restart. Yeah.
Got you.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, because we're doing some of that kind of stuff here. I think 32 byte. It looks like. Okay, that makes sense. And just to go a little bit deeper here, so the keys manager. So this is what you was talking about. When you instantiate it, it takes a key seed, which is basically your entropy. I guess when it was created, start time in seconds and start time in nano.
Those two parameters are weird, but basically they're supposed to be different every restart. And
Okay.
getting the current time is somehow a way that accomplishes that. That's like simple.
And to
Yeah.
do, is it that you get time from the system? Okay, well, I guess you get system time here is what I'm seeing. Is that the preferred way to get the current time, or?
That is just a way that works, and it's what's recommended on the method that creates the keys manager. There's probably other ways, but yeah, I don't know. Ask Matt about that. I've always thought that was weird.
Okay. All right, sweet.
But actually, that object is pretty cool because it does handle all the key stuff. But like if people have heard of the Lightning Signer project, which I think rebranded to VLS, Validating Lightning Signer recently, they'll do a bunch of cool stuff like keep track of some parts of your channel state. And if someone tries to call into the keys manager in a way that they shouldn't, or in a way that would lose funds, they will like prevent that from happening, basically. So yeah, that's kind of like why you would want to have a custom keys manager and not just use the default one.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. And this summarizes it nicely. So a simple keys interface implementer that takes a 32-byte seed for use as a BIP32 extended key and derives keys from that. Okay. So, interesting. So it's safe to say that LDK doesn't support descriptors yet.
We might. I'm not sure actually.
I'm pretty sure we don't.
You could be right.
I think I'm right in that, but I want you to double check that and confirm for me later on. We'll confirm that later for you guys, but I don't think we support descriptors just yet. Which are basically bit 39 mnemonics. Okay, so we have our keys manager now. So we're gonna generate some entropy, get some keys that's gonna eventually represent like a public key for our node. Then we got this thing called so we got some channel monitor state again. So read channel monitor state to disk. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the per channel state that's really important to not lose.
And we're just using our Persister object from earlier, and it's got a read channel monitors function and just takes your keys basically. Okay.
Yep.
And then, all right. Okay. So we got another concept that's quite integral to LDK as well. So the channel manager.
Yeah, this one handles all the interchannel stuff, basically. Like it'll handle messages as they come in and direct them to the correct channel to handle it. Like if someone wants to add an HTLC or something. And yeah, this is definitely the biggest and most like closest to what LDK has is a node object, basically. Like it does all the node stuff and the.
Okay, and I'm just looking down here. So it's somewhat similar to like chain monitor in terms of like the arguments it takes. So it takes the keys manager, a Fiestimator, it takes in the chain monitor, the broadcaster, the logger, this user config, and
The channel monitors
and channel monitors. Okay. Okay, this is where it gets confusing, like the difference between the two, right? Channel manager is like you can have many channel managers.
Just one.
Many. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's really confusing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay. No. So you have one chain monitor, one channel manager, but multiple channel monitors.
It's like pick one word from each word. Yeah, no. We've gotten feedback before that.
No, I think I've said that right. So just to recap, so we have one chain monitor, one channel manager, and multiple channel monitors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I nailed it. We've gotten feedback before that instead of having all these different objects, we should just have kind of like one object, you know? And I think that makes a ton of sense, but we haven't really had time for that. But if that's what other people are like thinking right now, like, yeah, you're right to be thinking that.
Is the idea of automatic liquidity management abstracted behind a consistent wallet balance such that the user doesn't have to deal with channel in-out capacity of channels much at all? Is this on autopilot? Yeah, it's a slightly different question. Liquidity management isn't something like, at least to my understanding, that we have plugins for or like we're specifically supporting, but it definitely is something that over time, I definitely think there's going to be tools that come to market that help people who are specifically focused on being routing nodes or maybe like lightning service providers, that type of thing. That's going to be like a whole ecosystem of tools for that. Whether or not like we are one of the teams that build that we don't know, but we don't have anything on the roadmap that suggests that just yet.
Yep.
Cool. So let's we are kind of speeding through a little bit. There's this user config though that I'm kind of intrigued about. What is this user config thing?
Yeah, so that's just stuff that you might want to, like if you don't want to forward over your private channels, or if you don't want to allow people to open channels to you, or if you only want
Um,
private channels and you don't want any public channels because you want to stay super anonymous.
right.
Yeah, I think our config needs to refactor as well, maybe. But yeah, that's the
Okay.
principle.
Okay, so you can really like you can customize it to that level. So you can like choose to accept inbound channels or not. You can accept forwards to private channels or not. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You can manually accept inbound channels as well.
Yeah, if you do that, then
Mm.
LDK will give you an event that's saying like someone wants to open a channel to you, and then you can choose whether to open it or not.
Okay, that's quite cool. All right, cool. So we've got now we've got a channel manager to manage all of our channels. We've got some stuff around just starting a fresh node and stuff like that. We've got some stuff around. I'm just
Yeah.
so we've got this stuff here around like staying in sync with the blockchain as well. What are methods to kind of do that?
Huh? Sorry?
Yeah, what are some of the methods to like stay up to date with the latest chain information? So like a lot of the time when we're seeding LDK, we need to know the latest like block hash and the latest height and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think in the sample we just call get info on the Bitcoin core node to get the latest stuff.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it's not super foolproof, I guess. And I think the Sensei project is a little more like robust with it and
Okay.
making sure there were no blocks missed in between this or this.
Okay. That makes
But
sense.
yeah, that's what we do currently. And yeah, people should definitely check out the guide if you want to actually build this because there are some nuances around making sure that you sync all the blocks since LDK last started. And
Mhm.
like you have to do that before then instantiating this and like and this and this. So yeah, definitely a little nuance there.
Okay. That makes sense. All right, cool. Let's continue to do this drive-by tour. Sync channel monitors and channel manager to chain tip. Okay, I jumped the gun a little bit. So what does that mean to I guess you just kind of described it, right?
Yeah, true. I guess we kind of but yeah, basically in the sample we're using the Lightning Block Sync crate, which is a sample module provided by LDK. And one of the things that it will do is take in these objects for you that you just read off of disk and make sure they're synced to chain tip. So if the latest block they saw was reorged out, it will disconnect blocks until it gets to the last common ancestor, and then reconnect blocks until it gets to the latest block that's known to anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then we are give channel monitors to chain monitor.
Yeah, that's just one of the steps, basically.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, the chain monitor needs to see the channel monitors and sync
And
up
it's
with them, I guess.
okay, and it's watching for the funding out point.
Right. So for each channel monitor, you call chain monitor.watch channel, and
Mhm.
in that way, it will have a pointer to this channel information. And then
Okay.
whenever there's like, for example, a new pre-image that we got for a payment we sent, it will like put that into the channel data so that we will always know that pre-image and always have that proof of payment.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, we'll keep going with these steps, and then we'll go into like the event handling to show that as well before finishing up. But
Cool.
we'll continue to like whiz through this a little bit here,
Mhm.
and then we've got this idea of like an optional initialization of a net graph message handler. So
That is just
network
like
graph.
I don't know why we call well Matt likes this name, but I would rather we just call it the router, because
Okay.
that's kind of what I think of it as. But it also, to be fair though, it does do network graph stuff. Like it takes information about like gossip messages from the Lightning protocol, basically. Like this
Okay.
channel's open, or this channel's closed, or these fees changed.
Okay.
And stuff.
When you're initializing a network graph message handler or router, to put more simply, what do you need to give it here? You need to give it a...
So you give it the graph, which you can either read from disk, or if you don't have one, you can just make an empty one. And
Okay.
that's the object that will hold all of the channel information and
Right.
everything we know about fees, everything we know about CLTV, stuff like that. And then optionally, which we don't provide, you can provide a chain access. And what that does is it allows you to actually verify the channels that are being gossiped are actually real, because you can check on chain that the transaction actually exists and isn't just made up.
Oh, got you.
So that's kind of like, it can help with like denial of service issues and stuff. But yeah, we're just YOLOing here.
And Sybil attacks and stuff like that. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then that network or graph data is just something you can persist like you would with all the other data using the same object.
Yeah, this is kind of just what we choose to do, is just write it to disk every once in a while, so you don't have to resync the entire graph.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, all right, so we have a peer manager as well. It seems like the pattern's of a lot of this is very similar. Like, so you have this. I'm not great at reading Rust code yet, but so we have a peer manager that takes in a Lightning messenger handler, our node secret, ephemeral random bytes, and a custom message handler. What
Yeah,
does the
this
peer
one's
manager do?
weird. Well, the peer manager just manages connections with peers, I think, and just will receive messages off the wire or off the socket or whatever, and figure out like, oh, is this message adding an HTLC, or like what is this doing, and then give it over to the channel manager or whatever implementation of message handler you're using, because that's just a trait. Yeah, and I think it will do similar with the route handler. I think the peer manager will receive like gossip messages and then just basically funnel them along to the route handler. Yeah, and it will also do the whole noise protocol thing from the spec to, I think, set up connections. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then initialize networking. So is this for establishing like peer-to-peer connections?
Yeah, this is the LDK sample module for actually doing networking and actually opening connections to other nodes. So yeah, it will basically, it has this listener that listens on the port that we specified when we started up the node, and yeah, it will just detect incoming connections and hand them off to the peer manager, which will like actually read the bytes off of the connections and proxy them. Does LDK have integrated? LDK doesn't have Watchtower features right now, but I think it was like the idea of Watchtower integration, I think, was baked in from the beginning. So I think we're definitely like very friendly towards that and interested in being integrated with that.
Yeah, I think someone posted earlier, or we posted the I have Satoshi Watchtower project, which is in close collaboration with the LDK. So if you're interested in that, definitely follow and contribute to that project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, but LDK will handle it if your peer tries to broadcast an older channel state.
Yeah.
It will fully punish the other. Yeah.
Okay. And then we're doing some connecting and disconnecting of blocks. We spoke a little bit about that earlier. So we've got stuff about like being in sync with the latest chain tip. and we can validate that that's the best block header if that's not the case, I think.
Yeah.
What else have we got going on here?
Basically, this is just spawning a thread that will continuously check with Bitcoin D to see if there's a new block. And just whenever there is, it will feed it into LDK, I think.
Okay. And then, okay, here we've got the handle LDK events, and that's good timing because we're going to finish up in about 10 or 15 minutes. So before we go into handling events, actually, last thing is like this idea of last two things is the probabilistic scorer.
Yeah. So, as you make payments, payments fail, payments succeed. And we want to make sure that information doesn't go to waste and it can contribute to future payment success. So that's basically what the scorer does is it takes in information about payment success and failure and adapts its model of how to score channels accordingly.
Cool. And then, yeah, we just, I define a place to store that on disk as well. I guess we're doing here like everything else. And then we have also an invoice payer.
Yeah, because LDK on its own won't retry payments that failed, which is something that a lot of people want, just like auto retry rather than like manually paying again. And and the invoice payer is kind of works hand in hand with the scorer to kind of like retry and like give the payment the best chance of success it can get. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then okay, well then we're just doing more persistent stuff. So persistent our channel manager to disk and then doing some background processing. Okay, so regularly. Okay, cool. So now I want to just a big portion of like the architecture is the kind of event handling stuff as well. So be cool if we could go through that a little bit.
Yes.
Is that handled in this file as well? Or
Yes, there's a handle event function, I believe. With an underscore, I think.
Score.
Might be handle LDK event. Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, so
yeah, so this is people will be implementing their own custom version of this most likely.
Okay, so let's talk through some of the events. So the first one I'm seeing here is this funding generation ready. What is that a response? What is that a response to or an event for?
Right. So you want to open a channel with someone, and you need to generate the funding transaction. But LDK doesn't have a Bitcoin wallet in it. So basically, it will give you the information that you need to construct the funding transaction. And in this case, we use Bitcoin D for that, I think. Yeah, we use the create raw transaction method, given like the script and the amount we want to be in the channel. And then that will also like handle signing it and unlocking the inputs to the funding transaction. And then you give it back to LDK, and like LDK will handle actually getting it signed by the counterparty, and then it will give it to you again to broadcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a little dance back and forth.
Definitely
And then
a dance.
in the funding generation ready, so you get a temporary channel ID, the channel value in Satoshis, and an output script for the address, I guess, that you want to use for the funding transaction.
Yep. Or like I think that's the output script of the funding. Yeah, you just said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, cool. And then just so basically this block here could be anything someone wanted, like however they wanted to broadcast that funding transaction. Like if they wanted to do some, I don't know, they might want to throw some analytics in there, or like they could pretty much like do anything they wanted in there. It's just like an event handler or a callback, and you can pretty much do whatever you want in there.
Yeah, I don't know what you would want to customize this for. It does seem fairly like just create this transaction and then give it back to us thing, but maybe you can do some crazy shit. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then some other events, we've got a payment received event that
Yeah.
gives you a payment hash, purpose, and amount. And we'll
I
talk a
mean,
bit
part
about
of the cool thing about LDK is that we try to store a very minimal amount of data. And so we don't really store very much information about payments that have occurred. We basically give the information to the user and you can do your own accounting however you want. So that's kind of how we avoid running into the issues that some Lightning nodes run into of just having a really blown up like payment state for like all the past payments and having to like prune it in these kind of random ways. So
Okay. That makes sense. So we've got, a payment received event gives you a payment hash, purpose, amount, and you can do, like Val said, all sorts of stuff in here as well. What other events have we got? We've got a payment sent event, gives you the payment pre-image and the payment hash. What are we doing with it? In this case, we are
just printing, I think. Or
okay.
I don't think there's really much you can do with that one.
Yeah.
With the payment received, you can choose to fail the payment if you want, or you can claim the payment. So it's kind of like up to you if you didn't want to, or if you want to put off claiming the payment. Like this is how LDK implements HODL invoices basically, is we'll tell you when a payment has been received, but you can wait to claim it until later.
Okay. And then, so we've got like an event here that's not been, or we've got two here that have not been, we don't have an implementation. So we've got, three here: open channel request, payment path successful, and payment path failed. So again, people can write their own like custom logic to I guess, I don't know, they might want to, again, it might be some analytics that every time a payment path is successful, or like want to be notified of when something fails in some way. So you can basically write that custom logic in.
The payment path failed and success is mostly for the scorer. So it can know like what stuff has succeeded or failed on a per path basis. Whereas like payment sent and payment failed are like the whole payment, regardless of how many paths there were. So yeah, if you want to do custom scoring, that could be useful.
Again, I think we talked about payment failed earlier. We've also got payment forwarded.
Yeah, you can know how many sweet forwarding Satoshis you earned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so you got fee earned in milli Satoshis and claim from on-chain transaction. Okay. Cool.
I forget what that means. Oh, I guess it was like the pre-image was revealed on chain or something, so you were able to forward it, but a channel closed in the process.
And then pending HTLC's forwardable. So is that if you're like a node and you're basically just forwarding payments to the next node in the path.
Yeah, this one I think we want to make a little bit more open about what's going on. It's pretty like opaque right now. You don't know what's being forwarded or what. But yeah, and like kind of the purpose I think is so you can forward HTLCs on after kind of a random amount of time, and that adds some privacy, I think.
Okay. All right, cool. And then, so we've got spendable outputs, and I'm seeing output descriptors. I made a statement that we don't support them earlier, but I don't know if that's true after seeing this. Spendable outputs.
Descriptors kind of can apply to different things. So this may be I think this is like in terms of like a script descriptor, which is like not a specific script, but just a way of describing it, I think. But that's not really my, But yeah, this just means like a channel closed or something, and now there's funds on chain that you can claim. So.
Okay, cool. So you could claim those, and then I see here where we're broadcasting that transaction, which would I guess it could be to like a refund address or something once the channel closes.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when you open a channel, LDK will own all those outputs and everything about them and updating them with each payment. But when the channel closes, LDK wants to like give these back to you, and now you can spend them however you want.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I think so we come to the end of the event stuff anyway. So yeah, I mean that was pretty cool. So
Kind of on
hopefully
point timing. Yeah.
yeah, I hope we've got some
Hey.
trolls. We've got some trolls. I don't know if they're trolling or not, but yes, we
Yeah.
have a girl. Yes, very talented one at that.
Thank you.
All right, let me stop sharing. 1 second. All right, cool. So let me stop sharing, and we maybe open the floor for a couple of questions before we end. But yeah, so this is like, again, this is only like the second episode for LDK. There's going to be many more to come. We're going to help you get up and running on mobile, for example, on Kotlin and Swift and React Native and all that kind of good stuff. But this one was just to give you like a super quick overview of some of the APIs and how they work and how to get started. So definitely encourage you to clone the sample repo, even if you don't know Rust. It's not a huge barrier in my opinion, because the code is written in such a way that like the APIs are really clearly, you can see how the APIs are used fairly clearly. I should be a bit cautious with what I say there, but like we are trying to create sample applications for different platforms. So over time we'll definitely be doing some streams on that stuff as well and writing more documentations and all that kind of good stuff. So but
Awesome.
no question, but that is cool. Thanks for your time, Val and Connor.
Implementation to integrate AMP. I don't think we have plans for AMP at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, no AMP stuff just yet.
Mhm.
A route, I think, did I miss that earlier? A routing scorer sounds like an awesome feature for probabilistically determined route reliability.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. Mhm.
Yeah. Any other questions? How do you guys find that in general? It's a bit of a drive by, but we will again, like, probably there's definitely room for us to dig deeper into like specific APIs and specific platforms and things of that nature.
Yeah, we could do one on the persistence alone. Yay,
Yeah,
thanks, Kappa. And
yeah, it looks
go
easy to
huge.
use. Well done. Thanks again. Awesome. All right, cool. Did you have any words for people watching out there? Any potential LDK users or any aspiring Bitcoin developers and soon to be LDK users?
Yeah, check it out. We welcome people, new contributors to the repo as well, if people are interested. Yeah, especially if you're working on a wallet or you want to build a cool new Lightning UX, yeah, our door is more than open for you, for sure.
Yeah, totally. All right, cool. So if there's no more questions, we'll respect your time and let you go. But like Val says, feel free to come and hang out with us in Slack, Discord, GitHub. Take this journey with us of
Yes,
building the next financial monetary system that's more open and fair than the monetary system we have today.
right.
So until next time, peace.
All right. Thanks, Connor. Thanks for having me.